What I know for sure is that speaking your truth is the most powerful tool we all have.
I've had rainbows in my clouds. And the thing to do, it seems to me, is to prepare yourself so that you can be a rainbow in somebody else's cloud.
We all really, really love one another. Deep down, we all love one another, and we need to get back to that.
Hi, welcome to the Authentically You podcast. I'm Dr. Julie Ducharme, and I'm really excited today because I have an amazing guest that I've been getting a chance to get to know over the last year and get to do a couple conferences with, and I'm super excited to have her today. It is Dr. Justine Siegal, and she is the first woman to coach pro baseball. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me. What the podcast is amazing, and everything you do with the speaking, leading, and power is awesome.
Well, thank you. And I'm just empowered by everything you're doing, and especially your story, because I actually found you on LinkedIn. When we were trying to, we lost one of our speakers for an event, and I had been following you for a while, and I thought I'm just gonna reach out to her. She probably won't even return my email, and you did, and that was kind of the start of us getting to know each other. And then, of course, hearing your story absolutely empowered me, because I wasn't really aware of what was happening with baseball and women and what was going on. Women play softball, but I had never thought about the baseball side of it. And so I would love for you to tell our listeners your backstory of how you got into this, and just tell basically what you've told us before at the conferences, but a little bit about how this all started for you.
Sure. First, when you reached out and you mentioned that the Lead and Empower Her event would help veterans, for me that was a no-brainer, and I was happy to be available and to be there. So thank you for the invite. So I started baseball when I was 13. Well, actually, no. I started baseball in T-ball. But I was 13 when I was told I should first quit baseball because I was a girl. And that was something that really stayed with me as I continued to fight to keep playing baseball. And I started the nonprofit Baseball for All because, amazingly, girls are still being told that they shouldn't play baseball because they're a girl. And so, Baseball for All is a national nonprofit that provides opportunities for girls to lead and play baseball. Lead in baseball and play baseball. So we just had our national tournament last week, and we had 360 girls ages 7 to 18 playing baseball on girls' baseball teams, and it was really phenomenal.
That is just, I've been watching on LinkedIn, and for those of you who are listening, we'll make sure to put up all of the links so you can see all the amazing things that Justine is doing for young women and older women in baseball. And Justine, how was it for you when you decided? I remember you talked about it was young. You had told a coach that you wanted to coach baseball, and how did that kind of spur you into this direction?
Yeah, well, I was 15 or 16 when I told my camp coach that I wanted to coach like him. I wanted to coach college baseball, and he immediately laughed at me and said, "No man will listen to a woman on a baseball field." And I was really embarrassed. I don't usually share my dreams with people or my ideas, especially when I was a teenager. So it was crushing, but I decided to ignore him and just move forward, and I started learning all the positions I could and doing everything I could to just kind of go on a path of coaching. And I got the opportunity when I was pursuing my PhD at Springfield College to be an assistant baseball coach, and definitely proof that a man will listen to a woman on a baseball field. All they care about is, can you make them a better player? Do you know what you're talking about? Do you care about them? And from there, I got to coach with the Brockton Rocks in 2009, which was a pro team in the Can-Am League, and then later on I threw MLBBP and became a coach during Instructs for the A's in 2015, and that A's jersey is now hanging in Cooperstown at the National Baseball Hall of Fame.
That is so awesome. As you talk about coaching boys, something that's interesting to me, I used to play volleyball and pro volleyball, and so when I started coaching myself, one of the first teams I started coaching was a men's high school team. And I honestly didn't think twice about like that it would be an issue coaching men at all. I thought, this is the sport. I know the skills. I know the game. I'm good at coaching it. Doesn't matter whether it's a guy or girl in front of me. I can teach them the skills. And that's how I thought about it. And you talked about that. All they cared was that you were a better player. But when you were doing this, where did you find that you were fighting the stigmas? Was it with the people who were watching you, the coaches that you were trying to work with? Where were you finding those barriers?
I think the hardest thing is getting the opportunity to show what you know. Often just being rejected on, via the name. Mm-hmm. I was treated really well at Springfield College. There were, a couple players that maybe took longer to get on board, but certainly by my second year it was, hey, that's Justine, mm-hmm. Our coach, went out with all the new players, the new freshmen coming in. I have plenty of examples of, where I was coaching third base and a parent sees me and says, hey, am I the athletic trainer? Which is crazy because I just came off the field. I'm in full uniform and you just saw me coaching. Yeah. But sometimes it's just such a new concept to people that they can't quite comprehend. I've coached a youth game where I was coaching third base, and then I challenged the call, and the umpire wouldn't even speak to me and said I need to speak to the manager, which was clearly me because I was in the manager's meeting. But again, he just couldn't fathom that was the situation. And he apologized profusely once he figured it all out. But, at the pro level, I've actually been treated really well. 2009, it was more difficult because I was only the second woman to coach any men's professional sports in the U.S., and that was harder. And I ended up not finishing the season with the team as they actually ended up letting go quite a few people for financial reasons with all the rainouts that had been happening. But from the A's on, when I threw BP, when I coached with the A's during instructs, I've coached Team Israel in the qualifier, working with the men there as a mental performance coach, and also helping out on the field. And another independent ball, and I just haven't had any real challenges. I've just had a lot of young men being respectful and maybe asking questions, but really respecting, I think, the journey that it took me to get there. If baseball players need anything, it's perseverance, because the seasons are just so long. And, it takes on average 7 years to get to the majors. Wow. So perseverance is a huge trait of players, and I think, I was really respected for that aspect of just never giving up.
Yeah, absolutely. Your journey is, it's amazing, and if you guys haven't got a chance to hear Justine speak or have her speak at your event, you got to have her, because she has an amazing story, and it's so empowering. And every time I hear it, I'm just like, this is amazing. You put up with a lot of stuff to get to where you're at, and you have extreme perseverance. And I love what you're doing. And I also I want to transition to talk about your Baseball for All, because you wanted to give girls an opportunity to play baseball. And I think sometimes what people might be confused with, because I was thinking that softball and baseball, I just wasn't realizing that baseball was so exclusive to boys. And can you talk about your Baseball for All and what it does for girls who want to play baseball?
Sure. As I mentioned earlier, girls are still being told they can't play baseball. It's less so, thankfully, being in 2019. But my inbox, regularly gets an email from someone saying the school is not letting her try out, or the league won't let her play, and so on, and they want to know what other options. So we do help girls who are told they can't play. We give them information. But also there are plenty of girls that are playing. There are about 100,000 girls playing youth baseball, and we provide programming for those girls to come together with other girls and play baseball. And most of them play what we call co-ed baseball, which means they may be the only girl on their team or league, but we still call it co-ed baseball. Mm-hmm. And go into communities and support any way we can or any way that's needed, starting a new girls baseball program. So this tournament, we'd have tournaments around the country, but our biggest tournament was last week, our nationals, and we had 31 teams.
Wow.
From all over the U.S. and Canada.
So those teams that you have, do they have their own leagues that they play in different states, in the countries or out of the countries? How does that work if someone's saying, hey, I really want to have some type of girls baseball team where we're at?
Most of them the girls play amongst the boys, and then they get together for different events with the girls, maybe for one of our tournaments, maybe for practices once a week. Some of them are an all-girls team playing in the league. It's really has a lot of variety, and it really just depends on what the community can have, what it can host. Okay. But we're growing continually, and that's really exciting to see the growth.
That is really sad. And you mentioned Canada, so there's some even doing this outside of the U.S.?
Yes, Canada, actually, it's easier to play baseball for girls in Canada because they don't have this huge softball scholarship hanging over their heads that girls do in the U.S. I mean, one of the most common things is for girls to hear is, when are you going to quit baseball so you can get your softball scholarship? And that's not as common in Canada, but it's certainly not fair to the girls here who are just trying to pursue their passion.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think this is really interesting because the first time I heard you talk, I was talking with Karen, and Karen, my colleague, said to me, yeah, why don't we have baseball for girls? I never thought about that. And I thought the same thing, being in sports and stuff. I never thought about that this was happening at this level. But we're seeing more over the last couple of years than ever. Women are starting to step into, male-dominated sports. We're seeing men's NBA coaches, women coaches, women assistant coaches, football, baseball. And do you see this as a trend that it's going to continue to incorporate in to these male-dominated sports women coaches?
I do. I think the leagues are demanding it, or the fans are demanding it. So it's not that the women are suddenly more qualified. It's that the leagues have decided that it's time to include women. Becky Hammond and Nancy Lieberman were coaches in the NBA, and they showed that it doesn't all fall apart when you have a woman on the team. And they paved the way for other teams to say, hey, we can find a women coach too. For me, I consider being a woman a tool. I consider it a benefit to be a woman on a men's team, because the more diversity you have, the more chances you are to reach certain players. And there are players who are just more comfortable at times with different things, talking to, a woman that they respect versus a male that they respect. The more diversity, the more you're going to reach players. So to me, it's just a no-brainer to include women on your staff.
I agree with you. I mean, I talk about this a lot with classes I teach, and obviously as we do empowerment, and a lot of people I'll tell people, I love working with men. I think the diversity of thought is so important because we both have a unique way that we think about things, and having those two diversity really brings in my opinion, a power play. I mean, I've spent years being a head coach with male coaches as my assistants, and we work together phenomenally. And I agree with you. I think diversity brings in such a way for both coaches, male and female, to reach players in a way that works, because as we all know, we all learn differently. And so, having that diversity, I think, is great. So it's been going around that, I've heard a couple different numbers, that it's going to be like 200 years before we reach equality for women. Another stat said 75 years before we reach equality for women. As we see things trending, and you've gone through the grinder for this, and so have other women, and we were talking about that more teams are integrating it in. Overall, what do you think about women moving into more and more male-dominated positions, whether it be sports, work, or something else? Do you see that trending sooner than, as they're saying, 75 years and 200 years?
I can't say, but I do definitely believe that when we throw out these boxes that we put men and women in and we allow people to follow their passions, we're going to get the best workforce, and we're going to get the most satisfied and happy people. And as we do that, I'm sure that not only as society will grow, but our economy will grow, and we just let people be who they want to be. I can't predict what the economics is. It'll take 70 years, but it's definitely time. It's definitely time, and hopefully it can go quicker.
Yeah, I know that was a tough question. I just wanted your perspective on it. So last question that I wanted to ask you, and thank you so much for being willing to share, different important parts of your journey, is for those girls out there who are wanting to join, whether it be baseball or another male-dominated sport, and they're facing barriers, what advice could you offer to them?
If they really want to go after something, whether it's sport or computer camp or engineering, whatever it is that they're being told they shouldn't do, just don't give up and find another adult. Keep looking for adults who will support you, because they're out there. There are people out there to support you. Just don't give up. Keep looking for them. Find them. And leave everyone in the dust. Go be your best self.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, thank you so much for being with us today. We appreciate you. I know you have a really busy schedule with everything that you're doing. For those of you who are wanting to find out more about Justine's nonprofit, the website is www.2.baseballforall.com. We'll put that also in the links when we post this. Also, if you're looking for Justine to be at your event or be a speaker, she does that as well. And you can go to JustineSiegal.com for that as well. So I hope you enjoyed our Authentically You podcast. And thank you so much, Justine, for being on the show. And as I always say, live, love, laugh, and be your authentic self.